Hi, my name's Aiden Heke. I'm the Australian CEO for Decision Inc. and I'm here to bring you episode 8 of our executive education series on data and analytics. And I bring to you the episode around building a data-driven culture. I will cover why build a culture that is data-driven, what is it, how do you build a data-driven culture, and talk about a data literacy program. Post-COVID, the number one imperative inside organisations and number two is focused on data maturity, and in particular, analytics and artificial intelligence. Organisations see those from the board level as means with which to drive game-changing growth. And growth is the top mindset. A recent CEO executive survey carried out in 2021 identified that growth was the number one imperative for organisations. And growth as a priority was underpinned by the number two imperative, technology-related initiatives. All of those require digital capabilities inside organisations, and there is a recognised gap that needs to be bridged. When we talk of a digital capability, we talk of a means of understanding the digital insights and drive data-driven decision-making. And data competency and the data culture underpins all of the value creation from those programs. In a 2019 Gartner survey, the data-driven culture was the number one competency focus. Data literacy programs and data skills was ranked number 6. There is a clear imperative to drive a data-driven culture inside your organisation. But what is a data-driven culture? Culture can be described by many things. It is generally the ideas, customs, values and behaviours of a group. And if we consider a data-driven culture, we might argue that the process of data-driven decision-making is occurring at every level, both formally and informally, as it is inculcated in the culture of the organisation. And to develop a data-driven culture, the approach is different. It is not single event learning, but actually a process of learning and improvement over a period of time. Organisations move from being data aware to data critical and finally to being data driven, where activities are through a continuous business improvement process, fully aligned across the business. Just-in-time learning occurs as new capabilities are required, and there is continuous adaptation to business needs. A data-driven culture needs to operate and enable the entire organisation, from the CEO to the on-the-floor employees, and all parts of the organisation between it. And each of these have a different level of analytical complexity and requirement, and needs a different level of training, support and development to be effective. So how do you build a data-driven culture? It needs to be a culture transformation program and recognise that this is a multi-year journey with data engagement and conversation across the business. This continuous learning needs to have learning paths that focus on the long-term development and consistent growth of capability in the organisation, and has to be highly personalised to the roles and functions inside the business. The knowledge needs to be scalable, and although centralised and codified, it needs to be available and democratised across the entire organisation for consumption. And through that process, the build-out of communities, both of communities of practice that create those champions inside the organisation that really demonstrate excellence in the business through data-driven decision-making and help shift the culture. Finally, this all needs to be technology-enabled and scalable through the appropriate learning management systems. Success will be seen when it is demonstrated as part of the day job, and we see that through 6 clear dimensions that demonstrate democratization of learning and a cultural change in the data competencies. And these are data fluency, the conversation, the language that's used, visualization, how the data is simplified and consumed across the organization, the analytic skills that are available to be able to draw the insights from the data that is being seen, the statistical methodologies that are being embraced by the organization that underpin the analytics, the learning ensuring it's consistent and that it evolves in a fast-moving industry and space such as data and analytics, and that there's an appropriate mentoring structure inside the organisation to allow the passing on of these skills across employees within the business. This scalable knowledge creating the platform is important and needs to be recognised as a fundamental means of unlocking this knowledge and this cultural shift across the business. It needs to cover culture, the knowledge agenda, the knowledge governance, and the knowledge capabilities. And the scalable knowledge that has been created through these communities of practice, whether they are domain specific in a specific area of value for members, whether they are practice where it's the application of the knowledge, building our innovation, expertise and capability, or it's a community where there's a social foundation to share knowledge, and how these communities all interrelate to build essentially the canvas of culture across the organisation that really shifts its data literacy competency. Finally, for a data literacy process, if we think about the steps that need to be followed, we start with the planning and vision. Where do we want to be? How long is it going to take? The communication, most importantly, the why for the organisation and for individuals. A baseline of the workforce. What is that assessment? The cultural learning program in its entirety that we have spoken about. What is the prescriptive learning that needs to be done, both on the job as well as learning from the learning platforms? And then finally, how do we measure it to make sure that it is effective? Hopefully you found this session informative, and it covers off the importance of a data-driven culture, how it is defined, and how you can go about beginning to build this within your organisation. Thank you very much.